Good afternoon, everyone. This is our Tuesday, May 14th regular Board of County Commissioners work session. And on the agenda is a CSU Cooperative Extension Partnership proposal. John Peacock will introduce this.
Yeah, thanks, George. I have CJ Mucklow who's the Western Region Director for Colorado State University Extension with me today, and also Brian Pettit from Public Works and also the Weed Advisory Board. And what we have in front of you today is an opportunity that's come our way, and a staff recommendation to do a pilot program to partner with Colorado State Extension. And to give you a little background on this that probably isn't in the memo, is CJ had come to visit with county staff and myself, I'm going to say 6-7 months ago at this point, just to explore whether there were opportunities to bring extension services back into Pickens County, and to talk about the really what I'd call a new mission really for extension services through Colorado State University. They've gone through a lot of changes over the past few years, and out of that discussion, we indicated that we were not really ready to maybe look at a full-time program coming back. We weren't sure what the needs would be, but as we talked about it amongst staff, we did identify, gosh, there are just a lot of areas where if only we could grab you part-time or partner with somebody, that we could probably fill a lot of needs for the county. CJ visited then with Eagle and Garfield counties, and an opportunity came up with Eagle County where they were getting ready to replace a horticultural specialist through the extension office there. And following up on our really many good partnerships, it turns out that the extension office there is the county representative is actually the human services director, and so we've developed a lot of good partnerships, and Eagle County contacted us to say, you know, this may be an opportunity for us to partner again on a position similar to what we've done in other areas. And what they put on the table was really sharing 1 day a week of their horticultural specialists for a 1-year period, kind of as a test year, if you will, an opportunity for us to put our toes in the pool and see how extension services might be able to provide benefit both to existing county programs but also to residents of Pickens County. And so as we started exploring that further, we identified several opportunities where we felt that this kind of partnership would be beneficial, and we want to recommend to you that we try this for a year. Some of those are listed in your memo, but first and foremost, support for our weed management program. Brian handed out a noxious weed management pocket guide for Pickens County. This was actually developed in cooperation with a horticultural specialist from Colorado State, I believe, University, through the extension services.
Hold that up. That's what they started with from CSU, and then Melissa and the weed board ended up.
Your copy is much nicer than the one I got.
Yeah. So we got much improvement. Yeah. But there's also more work that can be done to develop specific both guides but also treatment modalities. CJ is going to be able to talk a little bit more about that. We also identified that there could be a need, and this is where I think doing this for a year to kind of see what kind of demand there might be in Pickens County. Colorado State Extension, a horticultural specialist, can help small acreage landowners, so those folks who have maybe picked up what had previously been agricultural properties, maybe for second home purposes or what have you. They can provide the expertise and such to really help develop appropriate land management plans for those agricultural properties and to provide support for folks who may not otherwise have a background appropriate to keeping those properties in the shape that they should be. There's also a lot of work the horticultural specialists can do both for county and private landowners in Pickens County to diagnose plant problems, whether those be a particular pest, insect, or fungus, or what have you. I'm probably already speaking out of turn, CJ. And then the other potential area we identified that we thought would be appropriate for kind of a test period is our open space and trails program is acquiring more and more properties for their agricultural values, and they're going to be developing land management plans for those properties and suggestions for how those properties should be managed consistent with open space and trails goals in the future. That is not particular expertise we have in-house on the agricultural side, and so integrating CSU cooperative extension into those planning efforts. And incidentally, what we've talked about at the staff level is tracking that time and having open space and trails contribute to this pilot project commensurate with the amount of time spent by the horticultural specialists supporting those types of activities if they come up in this first year. And as we were just visiting here, we even identified some additional potential kind of technical questions around composting and food waste at the landfill, for example, and bringing some of that expertise to the table. So I think the more we talk about it, the more opportunities we find to use, potentially integrate a horticultural specialist both into county programs and for the community's benefit, maybe in excess of this 1 day a week. And so we felt that given the partnership opportunity, right now, the way funding works is it's a shared funding model where Colorado State Extension takes on the cost of providing the agent, and then the counties take on the cost of providing basically all the overhead and support and travel and office expenses. There's a chart in your memo. You can see what CSU would be picking up is it's got a salary range between $48,000 and $67,000 a year for that horticultural specialist. We're estimating the overall operating costs of facilities and everything else that would be the shared funding models for the county comes to roughly $48,000, $17,000 of which would be for Pickens County, and it's a little bit higher than that 20% split for those costs between Eagle County, because we have the additional costs for travel and those sorts of things that we'd be absorbing. Our recommendation is to use funds that are already appropriated. Out of my budget right now, we have strategic initiative funds. Some of those have been earmarked, but we still have around $40,000 that has not been specifically earmarked of those appropriated funds. What we would suggest is for 2013, using the strategic initiative funds, that would be to the tune of just over $8,000 that's in your memo, $8,645,000 for a partial year in 2013, and then we'd anticipate bringing forward the $8,645 that would be required for the partnership in the 2014 budget. So that is the pitch. CJ is here to answer questions, or I don't know, CJ, if you wanted to do a little pitch about Colorado State Extension Services.
I can do that. I'll be brief because I'd rather answer your questions. My background is I was the agriculture agent in Steamboat Springs for 23 years. And so very surprised me to see the number of cows you still have driving up the river. So it made me happy. And I hadn't been to Pickens County until I saw John in 30 years. So. Anyway, Colorado State University is a land-grant university. It's Abraham Lincoln's established that it's the People's University, etc. Extension is the branch of that university. It's 100 years old next year. That is to bring that knowledge that university to real application for the people. So it's non-academic application of knowledge. It's research-based knowledge. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do. And we put on programs and all those things. We have generally, 5 areas of expertise: clean energy, consumer and family sciences, of which we also have a grant right now at Pitkin County. We're going to deliver some financial train-the-trainer training coming up in the fall with some nonprofits here in Pitkin through Mitzi's whatever fund that is.
Healthy Community Fund. So
ag programs, natural resource programs. That's what obviously this position generally falls under. We do community development. And then water is a big issue everywhere we go in Colorado. So those are our broad areas of program expertise. And most counties, we have offices in every county except 3, San Juan, and Lake. Hinsdale is also doing a trial basis right now with us to see if they want to bring extension back. And their interest was more in 4-H, believe it or not. They had a lot of youth in Lake City. They felt like our 4-H program, particularly our STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, specialists could really be a help to their county. A little bit of agriculture, but their interest is really in 4-H. And they're doing that right now, and I have to go back and meet with them in July and see if they want to continue that. And I think they do. We had a meeting a month ago. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. I also want to say that our agents are not, we used to be sort of driven by CSU, that we're always the traditional home economists, the ag agent, and we both did 4-H work. Those days are kind of over. Our director, Lou Swanson, has really made it a point that, look, within our areas of expertise, what you want out of your agent is what you want, not what CSU thinks you ought to have. So we've got this trial here because we had this opportunity, but how you want that person to have best serve the citizens of Pitkin County, that's up to you, not up to me. It's up to me to help you find those answers. So that's really a change, and a good one, in my opinion, that we really take a lot more use. For example, our agent in Summit County, his primary purpose is wildland fire protection and forest management. He works for the Forest Service, the fire protection districts, and that's the education he does for that county. Because at the commissioners in Summit, that's obviously, you don't have beetles like they do or we do. That's an issue for them. So in a nutshell, I don't know what else to say. I'd just soon answer questions. The examples I gave you, I just pulled off a couple of impacts. Beginning Farmers, a program we run was started in Boulder County. It's local foods is an issue. Native Plant Masters is a really interesting thing, and in many counties in western Colorado. The other thing I brought and we had a chance to pass around, we have done a lot of these, Guide to Rural Living. These are for new landowners. Even though I was a traditional ag agent, my #1 clientele in Robb County was people who moved there and knew nothing about what they had. They'd buy 35 acres and either overgraze it or weeds or just ignorance. They aren't stupid people, they're smart people that just were ignorant. We created this book 20 years ago. It's been copied. It's 3rd edition. It's getting ready to go on. It's 4th edition. So those kind of things for education of landowners. And that's been copied by 35 or 40 counties in the West, 1 foreign country. And we've simplified it so we make it more available. So those are just examples. And that was the #1 thing that people in ranching in Robb County said I could do for them, was to educate these new folks. So let me just stop there and turn it over and answer questions if I could.
I've got some budgetary questions, and just with this partnership. So Eagle County had a full-time horticulturist, and that position sort of disappeared. So they don't need another full-time, so they're willing to actually share 80-20%?
Well, they will take this position full-time. I think this was Eagle County stepping up to the plate in a partnership, because it really, if you look at the amount of money that's being leveraged with Colorado State Extension, it's not necessarily to Eagle County's sole benefit to have us in that partnership. And so because I think I said, well, we might be interested if there was a partnership and we could put our toes in the water. Eagle County was willing to take a look at that, and I think they felt like with this position they could still achieve what they needed to achieve for their community and share it up with us. Is that a fair?
Yes, and the other reason is that person actually had a work time-limiting disability, so they're used to having it only at 17%, so they're willing to give it a try. But they do have told me that they're willing to take it back too, so
Yeah.
they're willing to have it full-time, they liked it.
Does, will the CSU help the county in terms of looking and applying for grants? I know that's something that Melissa is doing now, and Crystal Yates did a very good job of that, which was an integral part in terms of the WEED program. The success of that was identifying and actually getting grants for homeowners to take advantage of. So will that still be under, Brian, under Pickens County's role and responsibility, or could CSU have a role in helping with that?
I guess I would answer that, which is, we would still take care of that responsibility, but if CSU could help write the grants or take care of some of that legwork with us, we would much welcome that participation, because we are at a bare bones funded WEED program right now. So any kind of assistance we get from CSU in writing grants and taking care of those narrative for those grants would be great.
For example, we wrote grants in Routt County for a weed called Yellow Buttercup through the state weed fund. That fund is no longer there, by the way, but we were able to get a grant in cooperation with our weed program to help control that plant. It was one of the few places in Colorado that was. So yes, we do. We have agents, really our community development agents in Dolores County, who actually raise more fund than the total budget every year, but it's a very poor county, and they look at more community development than they do ag. So we do. I don't want to missell you on a 20% job, but we're going to come in here and raise $100,000 a year. I don't think that's going to happen, but we have always worked cooperatively with other weed programs across the western region, and I see no reason why we wouldn't here too.
All right, thank you. Questions, Michael?
John, you mentioned that Open Space and Trails would partner in this to some degree, really based on their use of the extension agent's time. But it seems to me that the Open Space and Trails has acquired numerous agricultural properties and spent in the millions of dollars for agricultural properties, and is actually, in some ways, sort of redefining what agricultural preservation and agricultural possibilities are. They're not the same as they were previously. So it seems to me that open space has the opportunity to support this program more than just on what they decide to use the agent for. And they also have the funds for it. So I would suggest to the board and to you that we ask them to fund more than what you were talking about, mainly because they're the most significant financial player in the valley on the acquisition of, except for private individuals, on the acquisition of and preservation of agricultural lands.
And Michael, the reason we didn't do that, because that was my initial thought also, is it wasn't clear, I think, to us as staff how that agent's time would be spent between our weed program and responding to, this would be a resource that we'd be putting out into the community for private landowners, potentially also, and how that would fit in with, because Open Space and Trails is already doing, a lot of planning and such right now, and they are bringing expertise to the table for those land management plans on agriculture. Our hope would be that we could achieve some economies of scale by bringing a CSU agent on board who may be able to inform some of those discussions. Our thought was, let's do this partnership. It's fairly low cost and low risk, I think, to us as a county. Start to see how that agent is actually utilized and spending their time and where the needs are, and then come back with a budget proposal if our experience indicates that we should continue that relationship or even enhance that relationship, then come back with a more specific budget proposal based on a year of experience.
Steve?
We'd have to provide some space, and I presume that would be at Public Works, but
We'd have to work that out
Perhaps
once.
be in the Elgin, the Eagle County building in Elgin would be another possible location. What do you foresee?
Yeah, we wanted to get an indication from the board whether you would support us moving forward with this. I think we have some different space options as you've laid out. I think we would want to work with Extension when they hire the agent to figure out what kind of space they need and how that agent's going to function in the community before we decide on an office.
And would you see the agent coming the same day of the week, or depending on need, it might be different days of the week at different times?
I'd say it's dependent on need, probably.
I'd say about a need, but probably the best thing if you want the public to use it, you get a habit of it. But it's going to depend. I mean, it's going to be things you're going to have a program, say up here on some Thursday, but the day might be Monday. So, but if you want the public to say it's okay to drop in, you got to establish an office hour somehow.
Right.
Or I mean, with today's world, cell phones and email, it can fudge that a little bit too. And this person, there's a vacancy in Eagle County. We are in the process of filling it. It closes May 15th? Tomorrow.
End of the week or something?
Yeah, it closes this week. So they have an office there too, and we just haven't got, and it's, the job description is written as such, it's either 100% Eagle County, or so it might be sometime in Pitkin County too.
Would the Eagle County utilize them at all in the Roaring Fork Valley portion of Eagle County? Or would they be do you foresee it being, they'd be based over in the courthouse in Eagle?
They're based right across the street in the courthouse, called the White House, the little White House there. That's where they would have their main office. Okay. And I really don't know about an office over here, but I think that it would make sense to have them have an office here and plan on being in this valley, whether it's in Eagle County or Pitkin County, to serve all the residents on this side of the hill one day a week. It's the way I look at it. But again, that's not my call. That's how you guys, you got to tell me what you see as best. Between you and Eagle County, how you guys see it best to service the citizens of both counties.
Rachel?
Yeah, I guess a couple of things for me. One, John, is a question for you. Are we set up so that the Strategic Initiative Fund replenishes every year, or that was a one-time allotment to that fund and we've just been kind of steadying it down?
It was one time. I think we're in a position where if we wanted to, we could have some flexible dollars that replenish, because it's not a huge amount of money that we put in there in the first place. But we did have unappropriated dollars. We felt this was a one-year pilot and it'd be an appropriate use of those funds.
Sure, and I can support that. I'm just saying I think that as we go into budget for 2014,
Right.
If it's a strategic initiative fund, it has to replenish at some level at some time. So we should look at that, and that's internal to us. I do agree that we could have more of an accounting at the end of the season or the end of the year in terms of what open space should contribute or towards that. And hopefully, it balances out in such a way that it's less expensive than some of the consultants they bring in and well worth their, integration with this service. I also think that tracking is going to be really important to be able to evaluate the success of how many private citizens, used the program or came to some of the classes or got a weed management master plan for their land done or wildfire stuff, whatever it is they end up using it for the most. So just the tracking so that we can justify the dollars going forward in future budgets is going to be really important. How was this service used? And I'll leave that to you and John to work out. You just kind of want to make sure it's utilized if we're out there doing it. And I think the quote, the printing and marketing budget that's in here, it seems kind of small, and maybe it's just to do a few handouts and things like that. But I think there's going to have to be some initiative to get, say, in front of the board of realtors, because they're the best key to talk to the second homeowners about these weed management issues and plans, and how to get the private citizens who aren't actively engaged in agriculture the way Steve is to use the resource, and not have it seen as something that's competing with local land use designers and landscaping companies and things like that who, I'd love to be working with those types of companies so that they're helping design gardens that are more water resistant and things like that. So, I see a world of opportunity that could be out there with this. So I am willing to support the request as we have it, before us now, and see where it goes. I do think it's something we're going to want to put together a CGTV show very early on so that we can help, and Pat Bingham can help with that. But how do we get the word out so that we make sure it's fully utilized in the first year as a startup? And, the last comment I'll make is that when you said you were going to bring this back to us, I had kind of said, can we look at what other buy-up requests were there for the 2013 budget that had been denied, that we had walked away from? Because there's always competing demands for limited dollars. If we can go through that consideration when we get to the next year's budget, I'll be okay with, going forward with this. I can certainly see the value. But there are other things of value that we turn down over similar amounts of money. And, the one that really just keeps bubbling back up for me, and it's probably a larger board discussion later, but we really don't have an energy manager anymore. And that was something that we lost our Dylan, and then we no longer getting the core grant for the position, and so it's kind of fallen between the cracks with us. And so if I was starting to look at our broader structure of what do we need to add back in, yes, I think CSU extension is something that's well worth a try in our community to see if the value's there. I have a feeling it'll be yes, and the demand will grow, and we'll have a challenge finding a 50-50 split in the future or something. But I also want to look at, what's falling between the cracks by other things that were eliminated from the county over time. Again, knowing CU was eliminated far before you got here, John. Right. But the energy manager is one of those components. So willing to do it now, and let's see how it fits in the budget and with other priorities going forward.
And Rachel, just so you know, that is not off our radar screen as staff, and we're looking for similar opportunities to create partnerships to fill some of those gaps, particularly on the energy manager position. And so we are hoping to have a proposal bring back to you guys on that. So again, it's not that any of those needs or values went away, it's that the resources did. And so how can we find new ways to do the business and get the outcomes that we want, and maybe share through economies of scale with other entities. And so we're working on that, and I'm going to hope to be in front of you with something that works.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm just a little alerted. There was news stories today that Colorado's been one of the highest new emitters of carbon dioxide over the past 10 years. Probably a lot to do with the growth of the population growth in the state. But so even with all of our high energy standards and renewable energy and everything like that, we're contributing pretty heavily.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, we had a really successful program when Crystal Yates White ran it, and she did a great job, not only on terms of the noxious weeds educating, but many other aspects. And Melissa has really taken that role up along with her other duties, and I really commend Melissa for her hard work. But there was a gap that was left when we lost that position, and so I think this is a great opportunity to try this. So I'll support this. I go back to an earlier question or comment I think that Steve made, and I would suspect that that extension person will spend probably 2 days over on this side of the valley, because there is 13% of Eagle's population is over on this side. And so I want to make sure that time is really allocated for Pitkin County residents, and it's not sort of a carryover from additional requests from Eagle County, or they actually adjust for that if they get some additional demand from this side of the valley. And I would also assume that they would be utilizing the Eagle County Mid-Valley facility for that office. That would really make sense to have that there as well.
And we can certainly visit with Eagle County about that. We've got a good track record of working together to address those kinds of issues that we built through human services. So I'm very confident that we'll be able to work through these issues, which still need to be worked through. The agent isn't even hired at this point. We need to work through all the logistical pieces to make sure that this is going to be a benefit to us and to Eagle County in the long run.
I just want to add that, at some point after this trial period, and assuming it goes well, that we are having this conversation for expertise in Eagle County and Garfield County, because they have a 4-H program and you don't, and there's the reason I can tell them is because someone called me wanting one, Pitkin, that there's ways to share expertise, because we don't have any more money either, with those other counties, so that we can get people, and it seems like your three counties have cooperated in the past. I'm just guessing, I don't know, but I know Eagle has. That we should have that part of the conversation too, to make that expertise spread between all three counties and get more bang for the buck for the counties. Because CSU isn't having more money either at this point.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
But you better hit 7% cut because of the sequester. So we lost $220,000 last week. So
Any other questions or comments, or Michael support?
Yeah, support that.
Steve?
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you very much, CJ, for coming over.
We'll be in touch.
all right, thank you.
Thanks. I love the booklet. This is great.
It's so much better than the little thing that was given out previous years.
Well, the pictures make it really.
Yeah.
It makes the weeds look kind of nice.
This is, Brian, maybe you can answer this. This new booklet, is this being mailed out to all the residents in the county?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Wow. Very good.
And that's, again, attributable to Melissa's effort.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So thank
that's
you.
fabulous.
that's great, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to memos of interest.
Yeah, we have Jim Elwood here from the airport to give us an update on the runway extension.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Jim Elwood, Airport Director. Thank you for the introduction, John. We wanted to come back after a little over a year of actual use of the runway extension having been in place. And as you know, there was extensive community dialogue about that extension, lots of community outreach, and we thought it made a little bit of sense just to come back and do a little snapshot of what we think we learned after having had the runway extension in place for a while now. So I think most of you are aware that runway extension was 1,000 feet. It was built just for aircraft that take off and allow them to carry additional weight, specifically the air carriers, the airlines operations at the airport. And back when we did the analysis, SkyWest Airlines, who was flying as United for us, did a very extensive calculation looking at the months of June, July, and August, where we have the higher temperatures here and aircraft performance are diminished because of that temperature increase. How many seats were never able to be available for sale pre-runway extension, and then kind of, well, not as deep of data analysis was done at this point post, but we wanted to see if those numbers really panned out. And you may recall that there was an estimate by SkyWest Airlines of an additional 13,000 airline seats that were never available for sale before that would be made available for sale should we build the runway extension. As it turns out, those numbers, actual numbers, have turned out to be even better than we anticipated on the front side of this project. So the expectation was not only met, but we exceeded that by a margin. We didn't go through and try to count the number of airline seats that actually sold relative to that number, but because we'd asked so much time and effort for them on the front side, we didn't think it was fair for them to go back and do a detailed by ticket kind of analysis. But they came back with a very positive assurance that it exceeded that 13,000 airline seat gain, and so that's very positive. We've had some other benefits from that runway extension. As you know, probably the biggest one, besides additional seats, was the addition of American Airlines as an airline serving our market. We had been talking to American Airlines for the better part of 12 plus years to begin service, and they always felt that it was just not quite what they were looking for relative to being able to fill those seats. So as soon as we announced and then built that runway extension, American Airlines came along very quickly, and so that was obviously a significant positive to the outcome. Additionally, there's been other things. I was on a flight not that long ago where I was talking to a pilot, and the runway extension came up, and he said, you know, the difference between how much braking we have to use on the airplane now is really improved, and the temperatures of those brakes, they monitor those. And he said it used to be several points higher, but the comfort of knowing that the end of the pavement could be reached if further down if absolutely necessary has kept them from using brakes as heavily as they might have before, which is a wear and tear issue and has a positive benefit to their bottom line. So there's kind of a tidbit point where American and the additional seat counts were much higher and more high profile for our community. I think it's also a comfort to all pilots to know there's a little extra pavement there as a pure safety issue and that kind of thing. We've kind of gone through the assumptions and such that we shared with the community going in, which had to do with that we wouldn't see an increase in the amount of activity at the airport. I think those facts have held true here post-analysis. We did make some assumptions about noise and its impacts on the community. I will share with you that there's about 5 residences that saw an increase in noise, a little above what we had anticipated going into the runway extension. We're aware of that, and we're looking for some solutions about how we might mitigate those. They're a little bit challenging because they have unobstructed views of the airport, and how to build something on airport really doesn't seem like a very viable solution. So we're trying to figure out another way to kind of help be good neighbors in that area. And once we have some ideas along that lines, we'll be back with you to share. But past that, I think it's held true to what we expected on the front side to a very high degree, and we appreciate the support of the community to get this done.
So, Jim, you mentioned that because of this extension of the runway, you were able to bring in American to provide some additional service. In terms of some long-range opportunities for other service providers, seeing now, right now, where you've only got one provider, United, and we've seen ticket prices reflect that less of any competition. What's sort of on the forecast, or what have you and the folks over in Aspen, Stay Aspen Reservations, been working on? Anything in your forecast?
Well, I'd love to have a huge announcement for you at this meeting. That would make me very happy. I will share with you on the 28th of this month. You may recall that a little while back the board recommended and supported a recommendation we had made to do a strategic air service strategic plan. So you're going to see that on the 28th of this month, and I think it'll give you a chance to kind of see how the current situation is unfolding. Certainly mergers and other circumstances have continued to evolve air service as an industry. We've seen some recent, through bankruptcies that most of the carriers have been through, we've seen a change in what they call scope clauses, where the pilots of the mainline airline, let's say United, just for discussion purposes, had always had in their labor contracts a limit to the number of aircraft and size of aircraft that were allowed to be flown by other operators, mostly the regional carriers, like in our case, SkyWest. So that landscape of the airline industry is changing both at a very base level about how they're doing business by charging for bags and that kind of thing, but also kind of where's this evolution of air service taking us in both physical aircraft as well as how they're viewing their business model. So we're going to start to dig into that a little bit more on the 28th and kind of share what we're seeing as current. The future casting portion of that is something I think we also should be talking about further on the 28th.
Great, thanks. Questions for Jim? Steve?
These numbers you've given us are real encouraging. Just being able to carry more passengers with sort of the same number of flights, I think would probably please the people in Woody Creek and please the bottom line of the airlines operating too.
Absolutely. The opportunity to be able to sell a couple extra seats, that can really make the difference about whether or not we hang on to a flight. And of course, when we had this conversation in the community, it was about, gee, what can we do to be more efficient without any additional environmental impacts, whether it's noise or CO2 emissions or whatever that looked like. So I think we hit the target in that area. I think the airlines are pleased with the outcome, Steve, and we need to continue to make sure that our airport can be viable and important and sensitive to our neighbors as well. I think we had, sorry, Rachel, but we had that noise analysis that we brought to you also a few weeks back, and progress is being made on that front as well.
Rachel?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to express appreciation for the memo and you tracking this. We were just discussing a little earlier the idea of reporting back on projects that have been finished and what's the outcome and did they meet some of the original goals or expectations. And I realize you got to have a little time for a track record to understand that, and our seasonality can really vary, let alone the airline industry. But it's good to know this project was really well executed from the very beginning in terms of its construction and finishing that. And we might not be able to ride bikes on the runway again for another 20 years or more, but I think the community really did take a lot of pride in it, and appreciate your hard work. So thank you for the report back.
I'll pass it on. It was a great team working on all of this. So grateful for the comments, Rachel.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Look forward to it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next on the agenda are future agendas.
Yeah, just have a couple of items for you. One, you'll notice that we have the Grand Avenue Bridge project set for June 11th and May 21st, both days right now. It's an update. We're just finalizing schedules, so one of those is going to drop off. I'm not sure which one yet, but if it's the 11th, or I'm sorry, if it's the 21st, we'll go ahead and just move some of those items up and maybe have a little bit later start. And we are still working with the city on the joint meeting. They'd come back that the June 25th date may not work that well for them because they've scheduled a lot of workshops and that sort of thing. So we're still working on the timing of that. There is some time in July for sure that we have set aside. That's all I have for you on future agendas.
Anybody else, any board members have anything for future agendas? Michael?
Who's giving the update on the Grand Avenue Bridge?
It's Brian Pettit and Tom Newland. And it's been a CDOT process that Tom's been in, and Brian was invited more.
How was Tom in that process?
Yeah, I don't know what his relationship was formally, Mike. I'll have to find that out.
So, and it's an update in terms of the progress they've made in the planning?
Yeah, they've got a preferred alternative that they're looking at in the planning. This is in
CDOT
Glenwood
does?
Springs. CDOT does. And so they're coming to talk to us about where their planning process is coming out.
And it's important to us because?
Well, I think the connection for us is that is still a primary link off of I-70 for visitors who are coming up the Highway 82 corridor. That's a real choke point as you come through Glenwood Springs, and they're looking to make improvements. Certainly, it's going to be of much higher interest to residents in Glenwood Springs and the businesses that are next to it. I think they wanted to update us where they are as a courtesy, and because it's a gateway for our community to a certain degree off of I-70.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have anything on future agendas?
No, the only thing I'm just kind of noting is that on Tuesday, the 4th, We have some pretty big gaps. There's only going to be 3 of us here. If we don't end up with things to fill them and we end earlier rather than later, that's fine, because I have to drive over to Summit County that night after the meeting.
And I will be at CCI too, so
So-
we may move that recycling update too, because that is a big discussion
Yeah.
when there's only going to be 3 of you here.
Okay, well, that's kind of what I was looking at a little bit there.
Okay.
Okay, I'll tie in one thing with open discussion, and I mentioned this to John yesterday, and Steve and I actually both sat in on a really informative presentation on the draft immigration law that's being discussed in Congress right now. And after that presentation, I talked to one of Senator Bennett's staff, Deputy Secretary Sarah, who gave a great presentation overview on what that draft legislation really entails, and invited her to come up and give us a presentation as part of a work session along with Warren Klug. And Warren actually was the instigator for putting together this presentation. And I thought you'd have an opportunity here from a national level with Sarah in terms of what the legislation is about, and then from Warren in terms of what the impacts that could have on our community. So I thought that would be a good opportunity to have that work session when it's available for Sarah. We could fit this in. Sarah said that they're working very hard, her office, in terms of going throughout the state now through July to educate and inform the citizens on this proposed draft legislation on immigration, in the hopes that public will respond and write their Congress representatives in support of this before it goes on the floor for a vote.
I think it'd be great to have a work session. And thanks to both of you two for attending that.
I was asked by someone yesterday, where was Sheriff Joe DeSalvo, thinking it would be a very, very good thing for him to have been there, but is he still out of town right now?
No, he's back, and I know he is preparing for some workshops with his staff, yeah.
Yeah. So I think having him in on the discussion could be good when we do that.
Okay, so then we'll move into open discussion.
Yeah. I really have one open discussion item, and it's one that George had asked for me to bring forward, and I'll apologize. I had an email get hung up in my outbox. I guess I had too many emails on my system. But Senate Bill 252, which I think was sponsored by Gail Schwartz, I believe, and Steve, I think you sent out an email on this also, has passed both the House and Senate, and it's a greenhouse reduction bill requiring energy companies to double the amount of renewable energy in their portfolios from 10% to 20% by 2020.
For REAs.
For our
Rural electric.
For rural electric, yes. The bill is on the governor's desk. I have not gotten an update as to whether it's been signed or not today.
I looked this morning just on the governor's web, and they had a list of bills that he did sign, and this one wasn't listed, at least of this morning.
I would anticipate that it's probably he's probably gonna wait to sign this one a little bit, because he's getting a lot of feedback about whether he should sign this bill or not. I guess the question is whether, as a board, whether you want to weigh in on this issue and contact the governor's office as a board, or just as individuals.
Rachel and Steve?
Yeah, I would like to weigh in with a letter of support from our board. I have, as others, I'm sure, seen all the advertising that's out there opposing this, and it started being pop-ups on my websites I visit months ago to say, rural hospitals can't afford this, farmers can't afford this, school teachers can't afford this, on and on. And I think the track record with how the other utilities have provided renewable energy really discounts that. And most of those other providers who are using renewable energy in their blend are actually offering lower rates than those who are really staying on the other side of that coin. Most of the REAs get their electricity from Tri-State in Colorado, and I've been to a number of kind of small Tri-State meetings. They try to have them at CCI and others. You'll see them when you're there. They're hospitality suite. And so I think they're doing a little bit of window dressing with, oh yes, we just did this great new solar farm, but it's such a small percentage of their portfolio that, and again, looking at the carbon emissions report that just came out today for the state of Colorado, we really do need to do more. And secondly, I'm sure you guys also read that we've all passed the 400 parts per billion of CO in the atmosphere. And that's really not a very good sign for humanity. So I'd like to write a letter, but I also want to make sure we reach out to the Canary Initiative, the City of Aspen, and our partners at CORE to say, here's the letter we sent. Please consider sending a letter of your own.
And I know CORE, I believe, has already drafted a letter because they were encouraging partners to.
Encouraging partners, and actually we have a core board meeting tomorrow, so I can bring that up if the board agrees to send a letter. But I think time may be.
Time's of the essence. We want to get it out at the end of the day.
When he's going to sign, but at least if there's board support. And I gave John sort of the fact sheet with sort of some pointers along your lines in terms of why we're supporting this bill. So I can mention that at CORE's tomorrow.
But if the board supported, my suggestion would be that we turn that fact sheet into a letter very quickly and approve the chair's signature so we can move it out, since this is definitely a hot issue right now.
Steve?
I noticed that Weld County commissioners voted to oppose the bill and sent a letter to the governor to that effect.
There's a
lot of the, I've been involved some out in Morgan County on land out there, and I've talked to the REA people, and they really, people in the rural areas just don't understand what the benefits of some solar things and some small wind projects and things could do for their REA. They think that renewable electricity will cost them more money than less, and they're completely discounting the unaccounted for costs of burning coal to our whole economy and the atmosphere and the environment, and everything is not being accounted for in this equation. And I know that Holy Cross Electric has been, it's like the leader in the whole state for, doing renewable projects, and they've been doing an awesome job of it. And I think we could hold them up in the letter as being a showcase for what a rural electric association can do for renewable energy.
Michael?
It's fine.
Yeah, I really haven't talked much about the trip I had taken over to Germany to attend a climate change adaptation workshop. But one of the most striking things for me was simply the flying in and seeing how many windmills and turbines were dotted near each community. It wasn't like there was one place, you have one. It was, and even in the harbors at Hamburg, out, on the edge of the piers, these windmills and the solar, and being able to see that from the roofs when you're coming in, it was just everywhere. And it's amazing the percentage of their portfolio they've gotten up to be renewable at this point in time. And so fully agree with you, Steve. It's just something that we need to be approaching more seriously.
All right, good. So we'll get a quick letter out. I can be in the morning to sign that.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
that's all I had.
Okay, other board open discussion?
Nothing from me.
Let's see, tomorrow I'll be going to the Senior Services Council meeting, and also the Nordic Council meeting is meeting tomorrow. They're both on a every other month sort of a thing in general, or at least through part of the year.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, with that, I think we can adjourn for the day. Thank you, Grassroots.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Very good.
Do you have a little bit of time to meet on the, or talk about the sales tax?
Yeah, do you want to do that?